So I thought this video right here would be a perfect piece to play. Let me bring this up on a big screen.
I'm excited for this topic. This is definitely really important, and I don't think many people have this type of information. I think a lot of people use the stuff that we're going to talk about to cope without even realizing that it's actually kind of harmful for them. So I'm excited to address this topic.
Likewise, likewise. So this is about 6 minutes. At any given point, you feel like you want to pause it, you can. Otherwise, I will just run it all the way through just to give people an understanding of what we are talking about.
People have been stuck in survival mode, and I just happen to be one of them. I didn't want to admit this shit, but it is what it is. Because when I sit here drinking fucking coffee like it's beer or some shit, when I sit here and I think about why, pessimism is it's like it's so rampant whenever I get optimistic about anything. You see what I'm saying? It's like today, for example, it's Sunday. I realistically came to the conclusion that more often than not, I only have one day off per week, and that's Saturday. Saturdays are the only days where I don't have to worry about work. I don't have to worry about dumb shit. I don't have to worry about any of that shit. Because Sundays, I get a text between 9 a.m. and 12 noon for what my stop's going to be for the next day, which is Monday. Now, I lucked up and got that text message at like 9:30 saying that my start time for tomorrow is 5:30 in the morning. Not bad at all. However, there have been times, a lot more than I would like, where they say, hey, start time 1 a.m., 12 midnight, 2 a.m. And I'm like, bro, you're fucking crushing my soul from the inside out. And I'm just using this most recent like endeavor, which is my, current job as an example. But this is how it's been after thinking about it. This is how it's been for, oh man, damn near my whole fucking life. I think right after childhood into like into the teenage years, that's where it all started to like really, take root, if you catch my drift. Because I spent the majority of my teenage years, not being able to play video games, not being able to go places, not being able to do anything like that. And it's not because I was living with my dad at the time. And it's not because my dad was a piece of shit. It was because I was being punished for some shit I did. But here's the thing though. Thinking back now, at 33 years old, if I can think back to how I used to think and how I used to operate, the entire fucking time, I was basically screaming for help, but I didn't know how. You know what I'm saying? Like the trauma from childhood into the teenage years was just building. It was just compounded. It was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And this is usually what happens with people who are class clowns. I used to be the class clown. It's like your only way to like get people to pay attention to you is to do some wild ass shit, but you're not genuinely trying to make them laugh. You're struggling inside, and this is how it manifests. Human beings are fucking weird like that. I don't know why we do it, but that's just what we do. And so the punishment that I faced was basically reaffirming that if I get too excited about something, eventually something's going to come along and it's going to fuck it up, whether it's of my own doing or not. You see what I'm saying? Whether I'm genuinely doing some fucked up shit or I'm not. And because I never truly, truly dialed in on that fact and fixed it, I never corrected it, it just bled over into every other aspect of my life. I lose a little bit of weight. In my mind, I'm like, don't get too excited about this weight loss because eventually you're going to fuck up and it's going to be back at square one. So why are you even getting excited? I get a compliment about anything. In my mind, it's like, hey, listen, don't fucking take this too serious because you're a piece of shit. So stop. And it's like, at this age, that's bullshit. But because that's how you've always been, there's that constant struggle. You see what I'm saying? Dude walked up to me at the gym last night And he was talking about that video. If you can fuck with me, you know I posted that video like last year in July about locking in, like, and everybody was fucking with it. Da da da. He said he saw that video and it changed his whole perspective. And we was chopping up for like 20 minutes. And you know, he was, you know, compliments and praise and all of this good stuff was going back and forth. And I appreciate any and everybody who has ever approached me about any video I posted, because y'all know I don't post no wild ass shit. I ain't never had nobody walk up to me like, I'm gonna fuck you up for what you said, because if they did, they would get fucked up. But nobody has ever done that. You see what I'm saying? But in my mind, I'm like, how can I, instead of just saying, okay, yeah, he's being genuine, but I don't feel like I deserve this. Instead of saying that, it's now, how can I combat that voice that is just eating away at me, telling me to not take the compliments and the praise for face value? You see what I'm saying? How can I change this into something negative? No. What he said was genuine. What you did was genuine. And now you are receiving the compliment and praise for the greatness that you put out into the world. You see what I'm saying? I know my videos are long, but I can't just cram this shit into a minute. I'm sorry. If you can't watch it, I understand. It is what it is. But if you feel the same way, I'm just here to tell you, it's not your fault, because nobody was basically there to give you a helping hand to process all this shit. You know, you were basically thrusted into the world and told to figure this shit. The fuss is going to come and figure it out for you. You know what I mean? So if you find yourself in a position to where you get compliments, you get praise, you do good things for yourself, but you can't value in them, and you don't know why this is, it's probably a good chance that you just went through a lot of shit as a kid, and it just bled over into your adulthood, so where now you just don't feel as though you deserve anything good. Hence the reason why you find yourself in fucked up situations over and over and over and over again, because you can be happy, you can be great, you can be all of these things. You just won't allow yourself to feel it because you are afraid of it being ripped away from you, like every fucking thing else in your life.
Oh, testify, brother. Testify. I know that was a lot to process, but he didn't tell not a single lie. I personally know it's hard for me to celebrate anything without that lingering, oh, it's all going to be taken away from me right there immediately. Like, peekaboo. This is bad. Like, the effects that it has on a person in general can be mind-numbing. Like, it'll put some people in the house. They don't want to be out in the public. They don't want to deal with society. They don't want to deal with the world. You got people who
Your sound's a bit off right now.
Oh,
That was better. I don't know what happened, but it was like garbled a bit, but then it sounds normal again.
yeah, I've been having little issues. I think it's probably the internet. Like, when I'm playing a video, sometimes it'll be choppy. It'll glitch a little bit, and then it'll just resume back to being normal. I rebuke Satan in the name of Jesus. You're not about to get under my skin today. But nah, parents don't understand that when you do certain things in front of your kids and they see you in abusive relationships, or maybe they were verbally abusive or neglectful, and they didn't really talk to you about life, and they ain't really help you to understand the differences between being dependent and codependent, why you should have a healthy balance of doing things on your own versus putting your trust in others. Like there's a it's a lot, a lot. No, we can't put everything on our upbringing. No, we can't put everything on our parents. But a lot of that stuff does stem from it. And you got to be honest. Most people don't go to therapy or get help for stuff like this. You know what I'm saying? So when he said you're on your own, I felt that. I really felt that. It's like, oh well, so we fucked you up for life. Figure it out. It's like what? So y'all pretty much led me to this, hopped out the whip, went on about your way, and now I'm supposed to just go ahead and automatically know how to deal with all of the BS that comes with it. What's your thoughts on this, on the video, on the situation itself in general?
I definitely reflect a lot of what you said. A lot of people, as I said, don't do a lot of work on themselves. Many of them don't even realize that the behaviors that they're showing are related to past traumas. And I think a lot of people don't realize how many things can be considered trauma. Just like you said, parents are often our first sources of trauma, whether they mean to or not. Um, and things can be perceived as trauma to us without us consciously recognizing that those things were perceived as trauma. Lack of preparedness, the feeling that you aren't loved, the feeling that you aren't appreciated or listened to, um, even parents that are working and are too busy. In our little brains, it can be translated into my mom doesn't care about me, my mom's not there, I don't have anybody there for me. And so, depending on how you grew up, depending on the types of parents you got, depending on the type of education system that you were quote unquote subjected to, and depending on the type of friends and environment you're surrounded by, your environment itself, like the town you live in and what it's like, how safe it is, whether you're in a city versus a town versus like a rural place. All of these things will affect your relationship with yourself and other people and the world. It's something that people really should be educated on, because these survival mechanisms can take many different forms: eating, drinking alcohol, taking recreational or illegal drugs, even sleeping, avoidance, like being addicted to something like technology, um, stuff like that. So there's a lot of different behaviors that people don't actually realize are survival mechanisms. Even something as hyper promiscuity or lack of physical behavior can also be a type of defense mechanism. Um, most the categories in general are either addiction, repression, where you ignore everything, or what is it? Addiction, depression, and like rebellion type of behavior. So this could include like self-harm, being overly promiscuous, harmful eating habits, um, like ignoring your feelings and like forcing yourself to do things. Sometimes they can turn out okay. Some of the mechanisms are a little bit more productive and safe, like exercising and stuff like that. But there is also a line between doing something for your care and doing something to appease an addiction. And you can any normal activity can turn into a negative mechanism. Like you can exercise excessively, you can be extra antisocial or be too social, as a form of like not ignorance, avoidance. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of different manifestations of this type of stress and trauma that I think a lot of people don't really realize as mechanisms for this type of trauma. We also do have 4 innate survival mechanisms that are, as I said, deeply affected by the trauma that we feel. There's our feeding mechanism, which is how we're able to understand when we need to eat and what nourishment we need, paying attention to what your cravings are, because often your cravings are linked to nutrients that your body's deficient in. There's also the fight and flight instinct, which makes us aware of the dangers around us. Back when we were living out on the plains hunting animals, that was very important because it would help us determine whether we were going to stand and fight or run away. So it helps us know that we can go hunt the deer, but should run away from the tiger. Reproduction is another mechanism. And then our immune system is also a component, which a lot of people don't factor in as well. But the immune system is a huge component and a huge symptom. A lot of different disorders and immune disorders and immune diseases can be linked to stress. You're more likely to have a lot of different illnesses and conditions if you're exposed to stress early on. And a lot of different things can affect these mechanisms and affect your level of survival mode, including abuse and accidents, even the birthing process, like how you were born, if you've been exposed to chemicals or substances, if you've been exposed to death, divorce, whether it's your childhood, your parents, or yourself going through a divorce, emotional trauma, environmental traumas, even food allergies, and then a lot of like things that you're exposed to, like mold and parasites, pollen, pollutants, and as well as some born diseases. So even injuries. So there's a whole gamut of things that can affect us and how we interact with the world. And so that's why it's so important to understand ourselves, what we're feeling, what we're being exposed to, because it can allow us to connect all of these things together so you understand how to best treat yourself, what you should avoid, what you should take out of your life, and what you should add in, and recognize which things are too excessive. That way you can dial back on those things. So yeah, there's a whole bunch to this. So I'm pretty excited to get into this.
You sounded off. There was some
For
parts
anyone that doesn't know, I do have my bachelor's in psychology, so I do have some expertise in this because I focus on trauma. That was always my interest, understanding how our parents affected us, how our mental health affects us. I myself have been exposed to certain abuses, traumas. I've had to work on myself quite significantly. I have come from a very dysfunctional self. I've dealt with self-harm, addiction, hoarding disorder, emotional issues, all sorts of stuff because of the life that I've lived. But I'm an example of why it's important to work on yourself, because I would not be here and be able to do all of the things that I'm doing today, writing books and being on the podcast and taking care of my children, and being a good wife to my husband, if I had not done all of this work on myself. Even early in my relationship with my husband, I started to show a lot of these dysfunctional behaviors, and it was him that made me realize that I was doing all this damage to myself. And he's also the one that helped me pull myself out of it, because he has kind of that mentality of like, if you know something about yourself that you don't like, you work on it. You don't give up. You don't resign yourself to those symptoms. You keep pushing yourself until you achieve your best self, as well as my mother-in-law. She's also a huge support system. But yeah, it's really important to do these things because it really can make a huge difference in your life and can add to your successes rather than to your failures.
What do you say to somebody who doesn't even have that, though? I mean, you got people who pretend that they know what they're doing and they really don't. Then on that note, you got people who just don't have that type of community in general. You're pretty much out there. You send them directly to a therapist. You can't. Some people can't afford it.
I will say, make sure you get a legitimate therapist. There's all sorts of apps out there that are like, oh yeah, you can talk to somebody and blah blah blah. But a lot of these are not actually like vetted psychologists. They're just people like DoorDashers that are working for the app. So do be careful of who you go to, because it can not help you if you end up with somebody that's not really professional, because they might end up suggesting things that are not good for you.
Agreed. One thing I do want to acknowledge is you do have someone that you can go to. I just threw that out there just because most people rely on humans to solve everything. We are tools and vessels, and we can wield a great power. It could be good, it could be evil. It all really depends. I have one source that I'll trust above anything. And it's my experiences that showed me that I was doing the things that was spoken of in this video, and just in general, a part of why I appreciate my solitude or not is because it allows me to constantly have a relationship with myself. Like, I'm not needy. I don't have to call somebody up 24 hours a day to get them to validate if I'm right or wrong, or if I'm being an a-hole or negligent or whatever the erratic emotion is. I do that to myself. I'm my own examiner. It would be nice to have folks around you to kind of coach you along the way, but you have to be able to sharpen and develop those tools yourself. So when you do decide to start intermingling with people and you get out here, you're confident. Your confidence doesn't come from somebody else. Self-sabotage is real, and I don't think people understand how real that is. I love the part she brought up about the physiological ramifications that play a role in it too. It's not just conscience, like your biology, how your bloodstream flows, and how everything internally operates directly and indirectly plays a part in this as well. Is this a 50-50 thing? Is it half and half? If it's 60-40, how much do you?
Depends on the depth of your trauma. Because I think people that have more severe traumas, such as SA or being exposed to a really dangerous living situation, like maybe you grew up in the ghetto or you grew up in the inner city or places that were dangerous for you. Also, if you're constantly in turmoil, like this can actually manifest in children that have to move frequently. Because they end up getting uprooted. They have to learn a new place, new people. They lose their friends. They're separated from people, especially if it's like from state to state or like really far away moves. So it can depend on the severity of what you're coping with. And it can also be directly affected by the types of disorders that you have, particularly if they're genetic disorders, since those aren't able to be remedied as easily. Like there's some medications that might help depending on the type of disorder that you have or problem that you have, but it can affect you, like having trisomy, which is Down syndrome, can affect your survival mode. They tend to be more like sensitive to environmental changes, autism as well. So there's a lot of different things that can affect. Also, how long the trauma happens. So, for example, I wouldn't say I'm like deeply traumatized because I had incidents in my life that did affect me, but I know of a lot of people that have had it way, way worse. I did have stability through the school system. I had close relationships with a lot of my teachers and tutors. So even though I had a very dysfunctional relationship with my mother and had a interesting relationship with my dad as a result of his stroke, I wouldn't say I'm like deeply traumatized, but I definitely still manifested a lot of these symptoms, particularly once I hit puberty, was a teenager, and it was college that made me realize just how dysfunctional I was, because it kind of magnified everything moving into a dorm, because now I had to manage everything on my own. My mom was not nearby, so I had to make sure that I was going to my classes, that I was getting up early and doing the things I needed to do, that I was cleaning the house or the dorm. And then I had to maintain friendships and maintain my eating habits and all of the stuff that, like, my mom was very much the one that, like, no, I'll do everything for you. Like, I don't want you to worry about it. I'll do everything for you. You don't have to, like, make your own food. Yeah, she was very much a shelter, you hang out with us, not your friends type of person. And so I didn't have a lot of exposure to the social world. And so it was very disorienting in high school and in college, because I just did not know how to maintain relationships with people. I didn't know how to act normally. I was very much an attention seeker. I was one of the people that would just like talk through you. I just talked for the sake of hearing myself talk, without caring about what anyone else thought. So yeah, those are some examples of how it can manifest. And as you're saying, it affects how you are, like how your body is. Some of the signs that you're still stuck in survival mode is the sense that you're experiencing ongoing stress. You might have difficulty making decisions, something I struggled with and still kind of do. Poor short-term memory, also something that I have. Difficulty relaxing, mood swings, trouble sleeping, a sense of disassociation where it feels like you don't want to participate in life, so you remove yourself mentally from life. Forms of disassociation is binge watching stuff, ignoring people, hiding out in your house, using medications, to control your emotions. You'll have a lack of motivation. And then you can also have poor eating habits where you overeat, you forget to eat, you restrict your eating, or you binge eat on all the wrong things. Like you heavily favor like snacks and sweets and stuff like that. And part of, just a side note, the craving sweets, it can be a huge component of depression and stress because we're basically craving a short-term solution for that stress by consuming the sugar, because our sugar increases our dopamine once we consume it in that time period. So people can overconsume sugar. Like if you have a problem with sugar and cravings and stuff like that, try and figure out what things are stressing you out, because that can kind of give you the overeating or the type of eating that you do can give you an indication of how you're feeling and what your body needs. And all of these things can also affect your heart rate, your blood pressure, your likelihood of getting sick. It can affect your immune system if you're extremely stressed out. And sometimes it can even cause other things like seizures or other like mental, like bipolar disorder, anxiety, what's the other one I'm trying to think of, PTSD. So yeah, you can definitely detect it in your body if you're paying attention, but that's really the key, is that you have to be paying attention. You have to understand your body, and you have to differentiate between I'm doing this because my body needs it, or I'm doing this because my mind is demanding it.
That's a lot. You know what it takes to get to the point where you examine all of those factors. And I'm guilty. Trust me, I have a sweet tooth. I snack on stuff just to be snacking on stuff. Sometimes I don't even really be hungry. Sometimes it just instinctively I know I got it here. Let me get it, or maybe I don't have it, so I got to find another way to supplement for it. It's not a fun place to be in if you live like that. You might not even realize that you're doing it sometimes. I think there's a repetition that comes with it. Like you picked it up along the way and it just became normal to you, but it's never really been normal. You just started doing it because of a situation that happened. That situation has long passed, but you never stopped doing what you did then. So like anything that reminds you of that accident or incident or gives you that same feeling, you revert back to what you know help comfort you in that particular time frame. And I think that's one way that you can tell that there's something going on. Another way, I think, it's how you respond and how you react to people, especially in conversations. You don't really know how affected you were by a experience until, like, all right, how can I put this? You see somebody get shot. That's not normal. That is not something that you're waking up or going to bed expecting, but you can't unsee it. And now what happens is it makes you feel unsafe. It makes you wonder Is this what I'm going to see every time I leave out of my front door? So you're a little more weary and a little more cautious about where you go and how long you are out in the general population. Or you've seen a lot of abuse, a lot of mental abuse, a lot of fighting, a lot of arguing. And because of that, you think that it's healthy to argue and yell and scream back and forth with a person because it was normalized to you, but it's not normal. It can be seen, obvious, and it can be small little gestures of it that you just don't pick up on. I might see it, but you don't know what you're doing. You know how I can pick it out? Probably because I've seen characteristics in other people with the same type of behavior patterns, or because I've been there before, so I already know what to look out for. And I went through my own dry seasons, so I know exactly how to identify the problem. But if I present it to you, you get offended, it's because you're in foreign territory. I'm opening your eyes up to something that you're not used to and is uncomfortable. Because now, for the first time in your life, you have to see it for what it really is, which is not a positive. And some things just aren't worth carrying around. There's some weights that are not. Matter of fact, I don't think there's a lot of weights that are worth carrying around if it's not building your muscles or your mental. Like if it ain't feeding your brain, it's probably not it. How do you unlearn habits that you had when you were younger, or maybe you picked them up when you were older? Who knows? Well, you're gonna have to be honest with yourself. You can't lie to yourself.
I like that you said that because that's another thing that people don't really realize is yes, a lot of this trauma you can develop as a child, but adults, even like older adults, like 60, 70, 80, they can still develop things that are negative coping mechanisms if they experience something traumatic. Like you can see that with, I love watching hoarders shows and a lot of the time these individuals are like in their 50s 60s 70s and they one of the most common stories I hear is like as a mother they were great, like they maintained the house and whatever, but as soon as the children left the house or as soon as their spouse passed away, that's when the hoarding started. And they said that they had those tendencies when they were younger, but they got over it and then they have that trauma and that type of behavior starts. And so even if you do have a pretty good life, you can still be triggered into these feelings if you experience a severe trauma. I've heard it happening like they got exposed to a house fire or they were in a hurricane or an earthquake or anything really. That's, I mean, you name it. You can think of a lot of things that are traumatic. They can equally affect adults, even if they heard or had originally been okay. And one of the really, really important parts of recognizing this behavior is you have to stop avoidance behaviors and drug alcohol use, because when you use avoidance strategies, such as getting high, such as getting drunk, such as literally like removing yourself from the environment, you are essentially halting any sort of growth. It does not allow your brain to realize what's happening, and it doesn't allow it to move on from what's happening. And it mostly keeps you in that trauma. So it's really important to stop a lot of those substances. Granted, I will say sometimes marijuana can help. It can help calm people down, but it is a case-by-case basis. It doesn't always work with other people, and there's still the risk that it can also itself become an addiction and a bad thing. But generally, if you're trying to work on yourself, you should not be using substances. You should not be like avoiding these emotions, because to have these to solve these problems, you have to face them head on. You have to acknowledge and accept that you are feeling these things. You have to acknowledge and accept that you've had this trauma and that it's not your fault, that how you're behaving is not your fault, that it's not something you should be ashamed of, because often the shame itself keeps us from wanting to recognize what we went through. Because it's like, who wants to admit, like, oh yeah, I'm a compulsive liar, or oh yeah, I'm a compulsive shopper, oh yeah, I drink too much alcohol. Like, it can be very hard for people to acknowledge that they have these mechanisms in general. So it's thank you. So it's important that we aren't removing ourselves from our own minds and our own bodies, because that will not allow us to move forward, because we'll basically be stuck in our head. I think let me look up. There's a person that I want to mention that talks about that, how you have to allow yourself to go deep into your mind, to bring up all of these things that are affecting you, because by stuffing things down, that is going to contribute to that unconscious impact on your body. Even if you don't remember the trauma, it can still affect you. There are some EMDR, which is it's a form of therapy. It's incredible. I have used that myself, and that actually helped me decrease the emotional issues that I was having, particularly around my instances of SA. And I highly, highly recommend it for people. It's very, very effective, even within the studies on it. And just for a short synopsis, EMDR is the process of using, it's the, let me double check. It's eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And so basically you go in for 2 sessions or 3 sessions, where you basically use touch and a guided like you basically run through those memories with a therapist, and they give you different mechanisms that can help you feel more confident in facing those traumas. So for example, she had me imagine that my husband was there with me, or that my one of my friends was with me during that moment, and you kind of imagine yourself in that situation, and you give yourself coping mechanisms in those memories, and so it basically reprocesses those emotions to not be as traumatizing to your body. You feel less of that stress in remembering these thoughts, because a lot of our emotional dysfunction, like PTSD especially, is the constant revisiting of that trauma, because you're trying to get over it, but you don't have the tactics necessary to solve those things. I did EMDR myself, and I can tell you it made a really immediate impact. Before the procedure, it you don't have to like take medications or do anything. It's mostly like touch. You do like different tactile things while you're also going through those memories, because it basically like roots you in your body and allows the memories to be in your body rather than your brain. Because once it's in your body, it's easier for you to kind of work with and work through, because it's not like deep in your mind anymore. There, I'll look up the person that I wanted to talk about. I'll let you know.
It's not an overnight thing. You have to really want the work, want the results, and work for the results. Being open and vulnerable is honorable. I respect that. I think anybody who is brave enough to share their traumas or their hurt or their inadequacies, they should be acknowledged and welcomed openly. But I do understand how this world is. You're not really going to get met with that in a lot of spaces. But you should understand that there are spaces where you can do it. And maybe that's what we're missing a lot of. Or that, and we don't really look for it. Um, to say that you don't have a way to get to these places. All you need to do is get on your phone, hit Google search. I mean, everything is right there within your grasp. All you gotta do is push a button, ask the question, what chat GPT, Eric, like there are things that you can do to find certain locations that could probably help get, like you want to be comfortable. You want to be able to say, all right, this is where I'm at. This is how I feel. I don't know how to go about dealing with this. Um, what do I do? And like Sydney said, there are some options. My suggestion: don't try to go turkey on your own, or you could. It's up to you. I just pray. I pray and I read and I try my best not to lie to myself about anything that I've ever dealt with or deal with, because you're not really going to get the best out of you doing that. I wonder how many people do it. I wonder how many people realize that they're doing it. I was just having a conversation earlier, and I said, "Look, man, I don't really get excited or react a certain way until I know, like, it's real. Like, until I know that this is literally in the making, and I'm already in it. I don't celebrate. I can't, because I'm used to overly getting excited for stuff, and nope. But you gotta come to a point where you're going to be at peace, and you're going to have that same level of excitement, whether or not it comes or it doesn't come. You gotta be you gotta be so at peace that it doesn't matter if everything is burning down around you. You gotta be good within yourself. Take a problem by the root, pluck it. Go through the dry season. Go ahead and face the demons. Go ahead and deal with the issue. Do what you got to do. Don't stay in it. Whatever you do not want to stay in it. There's nothing good comes from it. It's almost just like you just put yourself in your own prison. You already got the key. You can leave and unlock that cell anytime you want, but you voluntarily stay in there.
I found his name. So one of my favorite psychologists is Carl Jung. He talks about basically allowing yourself to dive deep into yourself, like using almost like deprivation, removal of external stimuli, so you can have everything that's deep inside you come out without any of that other excess stimulation, because then it allows you to confront your true form. He really likes to use sensory deprivation. So you're not only not taking substances, but you're literally just like sitting in the dark and just allowing what comes to come, because that's a huge component of allowing these things to heal, is you have to allow them to appear to you first, because all of those deep-seated or deeply rooted memories that you can't remember are important for you to confront, because if you don't confront it, you won't even know what is affecting you. And sometimes it could be things that surprise you. As I have learned about myself and explored where things are coming from, I've been able to realize, like, oh, these things that I didn't even consider, like how my mom talked to me or how she responded to things that I said to her. Even like, even though it wasn't his fault at all, the fact that my dad wasn't present for my teenage years because he was, I don't know how much I've ever talked about this, but my dad had a major stroke when I was 12 or 11. And he was in a coma for a month, I think, ish, 2 weeks maybe. And then he was in hospital until, it was in June. He was in hospital until October. And when he was coming out of this stroke, it basically, I always compare it to, it was like watching my dad turn into a 2-year-old. And then I had to watch him grow back into an adult, but he never really reached his true form anymore. Like, he lost a lot of memories. He lost a lot of his personality, or like his personality changed. And I never realized that, that even him was affecting me. Like, I knew the stroke affected me because, like, I had PTSD from having to be in the hospital and having, like, even the smell of that antiseptic that they use to clean the hospitals can still trigger me today. Not as badly. I used to not even be able to use hand sanitizer. But a lot of, I thought it was just the hospital itself. But as I grew and developed and worked on myself, I realized it was also the fact that I unconsciously felt like my dad didn't care about me or wasn't there for me, even though that wasn't actually true in reality. It was just how my little brain processed it. Besides Carl Jung, another really, really important person that I absolutely love, he's probably my favorite philosopher slash psychologist. Oops. Forgot to put his full name. One sec. His name is Gabor Mate, and he is the Denali. Really, she just pulled the straw out of my smoothie and dumped it everywhere. He went through the Holocaust. He lost both of his parents in the Holocaust. They were both in the gas chambers. And he was only like a teenager, I think, at the time, or maybe like a young kid. He was able to survive, but obviously that came with a ton of trauma. And he so that was his study. That became his area of study. I think he ended up getting a PhD of some sort. And he has phenomenal discussions on overcoming trauma and facing the things that affect you. So I highly, highly recommend anybody dealing with trauma, wanting to learn how to address your trauma. He's a fantastic resource. He has a lot of talks and conversations available on YouTube. So I definitely look at him. Carl Jung is also fantastic, as I said. Another interesting one that also kind of talks about your being and kind of living your authentic self is I won't say his full name, Jean-Paul Sartre, Sartre. I'll put that in the chat too. He also has really, really interesting information on how to address and identify your true underlying self. So I think he wrote the book. Oh no, he didn't write that book. He has books, but he also there's a lot of videos that kind of cover his ideology, philosophy, teachings. And one more person that I like that gets talked about a lot is Musashi. His name. Miyamoto Musashi. He was a samurai, I think, or something like that. A long time ago, it was like 200 years ago. I forgot exactly what his year of existence was. But he has a lot of his stuff is how to be your true self, how to overcome yourself, how to master your emotions, how to master your like not being at the will of what your body is telling you. So there are a lot of amazing writers, speakers out there that teach about these things. So I highly recommend if anybody is trying to figure themselves out, trying to identify where trauma comes from, that they look into people like this. Another philosophy that can be helpful. I really like it. Some people don't like it as much because they're like, oh, it's your way of being, what do you call it? Avoidant. But I also like, I hope I didn't spell that wrong, existentialism. Which is the idea that you're comfortable in yourself. You're comfortable with, like, you don't have to have things to make you happy. You don't have to have friends to make you happy. You can be happy within yourself as yourself. It's not saying that you shouldn't have friends, but it's saying that, like, you don't need to be surrounded by a bunch of people that are like, we love you, you're so amazing. Because that is also another mechanism. Like we all see it in the movies, like bullies. They love to be surrounded by yes men. I mean, we have one in the office right now. People that are deeply, deeply emotionally disturbed or socially isolated, or their self-esteem is shot. A lot of these people, besides isolation, can also be like, I need to have friends around me all the time. I always need to be talking to people. I can't be alone. Codependency. This can also manifest as like you always have to be in a relationship. You cannot be alone, and you have anxiety if you're not dating somebody, you're not with somebody. Some of these people might end up sleeping around a lot. I can guarantee that, forgot what her name was, but that one that did the 100 people in 24 hours challenge, I bet you she has a lot going on under there that she's probably not recognizing. But yeah, there's a lot of fantastic resources out there, and So even if you aren't able to afford therapy, I would highly suggest do research for yourself, because I found that these videos, besides having the support that I have from my friends and family members, this is probably second in terms of its impact on me. Probably around. I've always been a researcher. Like even as a 10-year-old. Like once I discovered Google existed and YouTube, was over. I was addicted. But the videos, particularly through later high school and college, that I watched in combination with therapy and in combination with having a good, healthy social group, um, was really fundamental in allowing myself to recover and become as put together as I seem today. I mean, even now, I still have my moments. I'm still learning. I still am, especially adjusting for my children. It's super, super important, especially for parents, to start addressing a lot of these traumas, because in having children, a lot of those traumas, a lot of those difficult emotions and stuff will come out. They definitely highlight your hidden features, hidden emotions that you hadn't addressed. Because not only are kids stressful AF, but they also require basically all of your emotional attention, all of your physical attention, or almost all. So and then also, like, early on, you don't get a lot of sleep. You might not eat as much. You might forget to eat. You won't get to be with your friends as often. You might be in pain depending on how your process was. So children is definitely one of those areas that it will highlight the things that you've been avoiding and ignoring in yourself. Another one is also work and school. Things that require productivity can be deeply affected by your emotional position, because when you have something that requires effort, it needs your focus. And if you're focused on, like, I'm stressed out, I'm upset, I'm blah, 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 it'll take away from the attention that you're able to give to the things that you want to prioritize. The perfect example I have is I have wanted to write a book ever since I was like 5. I even have a book from when I was 5 that I wrote. And it like, literally, my dream was I wanted to have 3 kids. I wanted to get my PhD. And I mean, originally it's 5, but anyway, I wanted a PhD, and I wanted to publish at least one book by the time I was 30. And I tried so many times to start a book, and I never finished. From like 12 to 19, I worked on like 3 or 4 or 5 different like fiction books. I also had different like science type books, more like real data type books as well. Particularly once I read Silent Spring, I wanted to recreate that, but for our decade. And I was never able to get farther than a couple chapters. I'd always like start, and then I'd change direction, and my mind would go off into something else, and I'd never finish. And I realized that part of it was because I was distracted by everything else around me, and I was trying so hard to be perfect. Like when I was in high school, I was like, I'm gonna learn violin and harp and piano. I'm gonna write books. I'm gonna have my own podcast. I'm going to be in sports. One of my strategies was to be a super overachiever, because I felt like if I didn't accomplish everything, if I wasn't perfect, then I wouldn't be a successful person in life. I wouldn't be able to see myself as successful. But once I started working on myself, I was able to realize, like, a lot of those things I didn't actually care about. A lot of the like, oh, I wanted to be a sculptor and blah blah blah. Like my focus was always, I want to be a writer and I want to be a parent. And it took me 25 years to realize that all of those other things were just satellite interests that weren't actually that important to me to do. And it was taking away from the things that I genuinely wanted to do. It wasn't until I had my daughter that I had the mental breakthrough. Like, I'm a writer. I need to be a writer. And I, like, literally a month after she was born, I made the decision, all right, that's it. My focus is on writing. And that's an example of why it's so important to start understanding yourself, because I was doing a lot of damage to myself by not focusing on what I needed to do. And I didn't really understand that my overachievement wasn't what I loved to do. It was just something I was doing to make myself feel better about myself. And ever since I made that decision, I have been writing consistently. And shockingly, in the 2 years that I've been doing this, like 2.5 years that I've been doing this, I have basically written 3 poetry books. They're not published yet, obviously. They're still with the illustrators, but I have 3 books written, and I have a couple others that I'm part of the way through. And all of that was because I realized that I had to cut off a lot of these things that were distractions. They weren't actually dreams. So yeah, that overachieving can equally be a consequence of being in constant stress mode. So yeah, it's, if you figure yourself out, you'll find that you'll become more productive. You'll become a happier person to be around, that people will want to hang out with you more, because you won't be like angsty or like some people are aggressive talkers, where they just don't listen to you and they just want to say what they want to say and don't really care what you have to say, which is something I used to do. So yeah, it can really, really help your success in life, your success in your job, your success in school, your success as a parent, to finally do that work on yourself and realize where the dysfunction is coming from.
Love the message. I think this would be a topic that you would appreciate. So I surely
Too bad Jason wasn't here. He'd love this.
I know. I'm gonna have to pop in on him, man. See how he doing and everything. I messed up my screen with my messenger on it, the little camera thing. Long story, I messed the whole glass part of it up, so it doesn't function. I can't do nothing on it. So I'm gonna shoot him an email just to see how he is. But I appreciate you for pulling up this morning. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. If people want to know more too, I can always go more in depth into like my process and what I went through and stuff like that, because I always love to talk about this stuff, because I know that a lot of people don't have access to this information. The more I've gotten myself out there, the more I've noticed how little people actually know, just like psychology and mental health and stuff like that. And especially in the last 10 years, like the level of addiction that people have to their phones and to mindless content. So yeah, this is something I'm definitely passionate about. I guess I just have a habit of liking dysfunctional things, the environment, people's minds, the government. So it's, and I mean, that is a perfect example too of what happens when you don't deal with trauma. If you didn't know, our lovely president has gone through immense trauma because of his parents. His father was deeply abusive and a quite terrible person. And he manifests a lot of those symptoms of people that have gone through that. That's why he has that super ego and that need to be surrounded by yes men and the unwillingness to listen to anybody else. And we see how well he's running the country. So it's a good example of why you really have to work on yourself. Otherwise, everyone else is going to be subjected to your own dysfunction. And if you're working, if you're raising kids, if you're a teacher, this stuff is going to rub off on everyone around you. So yeah, it's great to identify, and it's even better to work on it.
And with that being said, folks,
And get
yeah.
therapy.
Amen. I think one of these days we have to go a little deeper into this one. Yeah, I don't mind spending back on this.
Also, don't be afraid of medication. I know a lot of people are like, I don't want to take medication. I don't need that. Even if you don't take it for the rest of your life, medication can be really, really helpful. I didn't realize that until I started taking the medication that I'm on. Technically, I started taking it for seizures, but it also affects my like bipolar disorder, because basically what it does, the one that I have, it lowers the electrical activity in my brain, and so I'm less likely to have the seizures, but it also decreases my like ADHD kind of like blah, 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 symptoms, because I can be very like crazy. Not the bad kind of crazy, but just like the hyper social, like I'm gonna go from having a 12-hour long conversation just with somebody to not talking to people for 6 months. So yeah, medication can make a huge difference. Once I started taking it, I finally was able to notice like, oh wow, I have been really dysfunctional. Like ever since I started taking it, I can now finish things that I started, just contributing to why I can finish those books. I used to leave laundry on the floor for long enough that I just have to rewash it. I never put it away, but now I'm able to like do all the dishes right away, do all the laundry right away. So even like your habits at home can be manifestations of something. Like if you don't finish things, if your house is constantly a mess, if you hate doing dishes, you'll always hate doing chores, but you'll at least be able to finish them. All of those can also be affected. So this type of stuff can fundamentally change your life and really make you go from dysfunctional to deep to successful. So yeah, I definitely recommend getting help if you need to, and not being ashamed if you do need help, because we can't do it alone. We need people. We sometimes need chemical help, and we definitely need better relationships with our doctors as well.
And with that being said, I hope you guys got something out of today's conversation. Share this out. Maybe somebody might need to hear this. Actually, I'm going to I'm gonna crop that first 36 minutes out, so it's just gonna jump straight into it. I just realized I can do that. So
leave it there, and then people can see if they have emotional like distress or impatience, because then they can know if they need to work on themselves. I'm kidding.
I know, right? I'm like, what the heck? Where he go at for 30 something minutes? Why was I got y'all? You ain't gotta worry about that. But you will see me later on tonight, so tap in. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, Sydney.
Say bye.
I will see you guys Friday, and I will see the rest of you later.
Mantra, slave song, slave ship, rip skin made me rip bones. But no matter how close my ancestors speak, they tell me they're tired of them praying on us like we're weak. I haven't been getting sleep, longing to sing until I surpass peak, until they think we are equal. Please, all I want is peace. My ancestors beat drums until their palms would bleed, begging that generations remember our story.